Hey everybody, tonight we are going to be working on the surface area of pyramids and cones. Yesterday we talked about the surface area of prisms and cylinders. Tonight it's going to be a little bit different, but you will see some similarities in the between the two formulas. Okay, first note that I want you to write down is going to be the definition of pyramid, definition of height of a pyramid, and the definition of a slant height of a pyramid. When you think about a pyramid has a base, it has a polygon base with the lateral faces that are triangles with a common vertex. If you look at this shape in the bottom right, you will notice that we have a polygon base. That's a quadrilateral there. In the pyramid could be a hexagonal base. It could be a pentagonal base. It could be an octagonal base. It can be a pyramid with any polygon as its base. Okay? As long as the sides are going to be all triangles. The height of a pyramid, you'll notice by that letter H down in the bottom right, that's going to be the perpendicular distance between the vertex and the base. So it's going to be this blue line that stretches from the vertex, that top point where all the triangles meet, down to the base, and it's going to form a 90-degree angle. The slant height of a pyramid is slightly different, but kind of has that same idea. Okay, it's going to be the height of any of its lateral faces. So if you think about it, if you look at a slant height, one thing I want you to know, it says slant. Okay, a slant height is going to be the vertical height of a lateral face of one of those triangles. Okay, in order for us to find your slant height, it's going to be L squared is equal to the height squared plus half times the side squared. Okay, so if you look at this triangle down here, you're going to take half of the side. Okay, that's going to be that black dotted line there. Okay, square that plus the height squared is equal to your slant height squared. Now, if you notice, this does look very, very, very familiar. 2a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The only difference is you need to make sure that you take half of the side. I know Pythagorean theorem. I have that already memorized. I'm sure you already have that memorized. Okay, so if you can just remember that you need to take half of the side, use Pythagorean theorem. Essentially, it is the exact same thing. Surface area of a pyramid, you are going to take the area of the base, add that to half times the perimeter of the base times the slant height. This is your key right here. You're using your slant height, not your height. You're using a slant height to figure out the surface area of a pyramid. So I'm going to go through this first one. As you write this down, I do want you to walk through it with me so I can explain it just a little bit. Okay, so the formula of our surface area is going to be surface area is equal to your area of the base plus half of the perimeter. Ooh, that is an ugly too. Half of the perimeter times the slant height. Notice your slant height has that goofy looking cursive L. Okay. Area of the base. If you look at this base, it is a quadrilateral. It appears that all the sides are going to be congruent. So you're going to take 6 times 6, okay, and add that to half the pyramid or the perimeter. Notice again, it does appear to be all congruent sides. So add all of those 6's together, then multiply it times your slant height of 12. Notice that slant height, it is going at a slant. It is measuring the height of a lateral face, not of the pyramid, of the lateral face. So now when we simplify this, 6 times 6 is 36, plus half, 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 is 24. Multiply that times 12. We're going to take now, I'm just going to simplify that expression on the right. So we have 36 plus, well, if we take half of 24 is 12. And I hope you have 12 times 12 memorized, okay, because it's going to be 144. In the end, we are going to add these two together, and we come up with our surface area of 180. Now, what is our units? just like it was for prisms and cylinders, our units are going to be centimeters squared. Not always centimeters, but notice it is always going to be your units squared. Unit squared. So we have 180 centimeters squared. Okay, so that's essentially how you find the surface area of a pyramid. Now, I want you to look at this next problem. Try to figure it out. Okay, if you look at this, they are going to have opposite sides congruent. Okay, you don't know your slant height, so that's the very first thing you need to figure out is what is your slant height. From there, I know you can solve it. So give this one a shot, see if you can figure it out. Alright, so now, very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find that slant height. Well, I know that my slant height is going to be the height squared plus half of the side squared, half of the side squared equals your slant height squared. In other words, you're going to take a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Just remember that this is half the side. Okay, so now a squared. What is a squared? We know that it's going to be 15. So 15 squared plus half of my side. I know that's not the entire length of that base, so I need to take half of that, which is 8. So you have 8 squared is equal to c squared. Add these together, you get 289 equals c squared. How do you get rid of that squared symbol? You got it. It's going to be that square root. You find the square root of 289, and every single time, I don't know if it's been any different, the square root of 289 is going to be 17. Okay, so now we have figured out what our slant height is. Our slant height is 17. Now we have the essential information that we need to do to find the surface area of that pyramid. So plug in what you know, find the surface area. Okay, what is the surface area formula for a pyramid? Okay, I'm going to draw a wonderful line here. Okay, surface area is equal to your base, the area of the base, plus half times your perimeter times your slant height. So when we find the area of our base, again, it's a quadrilateral. We're going to take 10 times 16. That is an ugly 6. 10 times 16 plus half of the perimeter. Okay, what is the perimeter? Okay, notice that opposite sides are congruent, so we have 10 plus 10 plus 16 plus 16. We are going to be multiplying that times our slant height, which we just figured out is going to be 17. Okay, so now we have the information. All we have to do is solve. Okay, so 10 times 16 is 160, and when you add 10 plus 10 plus 16 plus 16, you get an answer of 52. So now what you have to do is you have to take half times 52 times 17. When you take all of that combined, half times 52 times 17, you get an answer of 442. Adding that to your already 160, you get an overall surface area of 602. What are the units? You got it. Inches squared. Inches squared. Okay? That is the surface area of a pyramid. Get that slant height first, then solve. Moving on to cones, okay? Cones. It's going to be a circular base and a vertex that is not in the same plane as the base. If you look down here, right here, this is a cone. It looks like one of those upside down icy cones that you have at the fair or that you have at home if you know how to make them. Okay, or wonderful ices. Okay, so here we go. So your cone is a circular base and a vertex that is not in the same plane. So here's your vertex at the top. Okay, here's our circular base that has a different plane. It's on a different plane. Height of a cone. That's the perpendicular distance, very similar to the height of a pyramid. goes from the vertex to the cone. Now, your slant height of a cone, that's going to be on the outside here. Okay, so that's going to be that outer edge. Again, that's the distance between the vertex and a point on the edge of a base. Okay, on the base edge. If you look at the slant height formula, again, L squared is equal to radius squared plus height squared. You already know that Pythagorean theorem of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is essentially the same thing. If you notice that you have a triangle, okay, you have this triangle, you already know how to figure it out because this is going to be a perpendicular angle at the bottom, and you can figure out using Pythagorean theorem. Alright, moving on. Okay, the surface area of a cone. In order for us to find the surface area of a cone, if you look at it, it's the area of a base plus the area of a sector. What is an area of the sector? Okay, it's taking pi times the radius of a base times the slant height. Okay, so essentially you have the area of the base. Okay, what's the area of a circle? Pi r squared plus pi times the radius times the slant height. Know this formula. Okay, pi times radius squared plus pi times radius times slant height. Okay, now trying one example. Remember that formula. Don't forget it. Using that formula that you just figured out, try to find what this surface area is to the nearest whole number. Don't get decimals. I shouldn't see any decimals. I shouldn't see any pies in our answer. I wish there was pi in the answer. But try to figure this one out and get it to the nearest whole number. Okay, surface area formula. That's where we start. We have our surface area is equal to pi r squared plus pi r times your slant height. Okay, now plugging in what we know. We already know our radius. Our radius at the bottom, notice that is 6. So we have pi times 6 squared plus pi times 6. And what is our slant height? Our slant height's right here on the outside. That's 13. That is the slant height of a cone. Okay, it's that outer edge that goes from the vertex to a point on the base. So that's going to be 13. When you simplify all of this, you get 36 pi plus 6 times 13. What is 6 times 13? You get your answer of 78 pi. Again, I like to use the pi. Don't multiply times your pi until the very end. Okay, I am going to move this to make sure I get the nearest whole number. I'm going to round my answer to the nearest hundredth to begin with, just to be safe. Okay, but my answer is going to be to the nearest whole number. So when I take 36 times pi, I get an answer of 113.10. I need to add that to 245.04 because that is what 78 times pi is. When we add this together to the nearest whole number, we get 358 units squared. What's our units? Feet. We need units squared. Square it. And that's our answer of 358 feet squared. Note, I know this was quite a few notes here today, but this is the last note of the time, or of the day, of the lesson. Okay, find the surface area of the cone to the nearest whole number. So, given the information that you know, given the information that you need to know in order to find the surface area, try to find the surface area of this cone. Alright, I hope the first thing that pops into your head is going to be, what is my slant height? I need to find my slant height to find surface area. So I'm hoping you're thinking, what is the slant height? What's the slant height? What's the slant height? Okay, so now you have this 15, that is the height of our cone. We have this 8, that's the radius of our cone. When we square those, and we can solve for your slant height. So again, using that Pythagorean theorem of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we solve by taking 15 squared plus 8 squared equals c squared. I am hoping you are noticing that this is very similar to something that we have already done. Okay? It's already in your notes. Well, it better be. But it's already in your notes. Okay? When we solve here, you're going to have 289 c squared. Take the square root. Again, it turns out to be 17. I don't know how that happens. Again, our slant height is going to be 17 because, again, square root of 289 is 17. Now, we have our slant height, we have our radius, we have everything we need to know to figure this out. So, I'm going to ask you, what is the surface area formula? Surface area is equal to pi r squared, which is the area of the base, plus pi times your radius times your slant height. Okay? Now plug in the information that you know. You know your pi, 3.1415. Okay? You know your radius, 8. You know your slant height, 17. Okay? Multiplying all of these together, you have 8 squared times pi plus your pi times your 8 squared, or sorry, not times 6. What are you doing, Mr. Sheeman? What are you, crazy? Okay, we need to find our radius, which is 8, times slant height of 17. When we multiply all of these together, well, we have 64 pi plus 136 pi. Again, I do want to find it to the nearest whole number. I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth just to be safe. So I have 201.06 plus 427.26. When I add these together, I come out with a total of 628.32 inches squared. Okay, don't forget that unit squared at the end. All right, if you have any questions, make sure you ask me. Okay, I can't read your minds, unfortunately, because that would be cool if I could read minds. Okay, but I can't read your minds. Ask me if you have any questions about this. And for tonight, you'll get your assignment tomorrow. Okay, have a great night.